Hi everyone! Welcome to Acutely Amanda. I'm Amanda. I'm on a decluttering, destashing, gardening, low-buy, and more journey, and today I'm talking to you about gardening. I've been gardening for many years, and I have been gardening on a balcony in an urban area for 7 years as of this year. I've learned a lot on my journey, and I thought as I was transplanting my seedlings out onto my balcony, it might be a nice time to talk to you about some tips and tricks to help it be successful. I've also written a blog post about this that I'll link below. And I'm recording this intro here because my balcony is so windy it was not possible to record well sound on the balcony, so I had to do a voiceover, so that's why I'm doing this intro now. So let's take a look, and I hope you learned something helpful. I like to split my planting up into more than one day. That is because sometimes unexpected weather or birds occur shortly after you plant, and you can potentially lose a lot of your seedlings. So dramatic changes in weather, especially if you are gardening on a balcony, can be things like especially high winds. You can see that this was actually a windy day. This was 57 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius the day I was planting. It was a little cold, in all honesty, for planting the seedlings, but they really needed to go out. I couldn't wait any longer. I hadn't started them too soon. It was just unseasonably cold that day. In any case, I like to plant about half of them at a time because the weather can change dramatically. The weather changes are more dramatic the further away you are from the ground, and that's because of more differences in wind and temperature. So that is an important consideration to take. It can ruin the seedlings. And then I also have had years where birds just spot my seedlings and decide they would be excellent nesting material and come and chop away all of the leaves of any of the plants that are there. So I like to split this up into two plantings just in case something bad happens shortly after the first one. I still have some plants in reserve. And another thing that I'm doing, as you can tell, all of the planters are lined up against the house. A lot of times you'll notice if you walk by people's homes when they have a balcony garden that it's out along the railing. And that's all well and good once the plants are established, but when you're first starting them, you really want to protect them from wind as much as possible, and that's better close against the home. So that's why all of my containers are lined up against the wall of the house. All of my containers stayed outside over winter, so in the fall I removed all of the old plants for anything that was an annual. There are some perennials here too, you can see in the background. The plants that you see sticking up that are there, those are perennials. But I removed any of the annuals, and then I just left these outside over winter. And then when it's time to plant, you just come out and you do your planting. So how do you know when it's time to transplant your seedlings? I'm showing you here. See how this plant is a little bit root bound. The roots are gathered all the way around the dirt in the bottom of the pot. You can't really tell that until you take them out, but there are some signs before you take them out. So one is the frequency of watering. If you're having to water a lot more frequently, your plant is probably becoming root bound and is almost ready to transplant. A lot of people recommend breaking up the roots when you plant into the container. I only do that a little bit. I worry about doing it too much, and because I feel like, in my experience, sometimes it makes it harder for the plant to become established. Again, it's a little bit rough on them being this high up off the ground. I would rather they not have a weakened system when I put them up off the ground like this. So you just pull the plant out of the pot and you stick it into your container, and then you put dirt around it. I don't know if you noticed, but when I was getting ready, I basically dug into the dirt of this container, pulled some dirt out and put it on top of another container so that I wouldn't lose too much of it, and then I put it back there into the pot. So this was day 2 of planting, and you'll notice a dramatic clothing change. It was only 4 days later, but it was 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius, which was a huge temperature swing. So the first day was abnormally cold for this time of year for our region, and this day was abnormally warm for this time of year for our region. And you'll notice that I wear gardening gloves even though I'm gardening in my containers where I know exactly what's in them. I'm not too worried about like running into like any trash or garbage, but I have found that it's much easier to get cleaned up after gardening if I wear the gardening gloves, so that's why I wear them. So one thing I wanted to talk about was the different types of containers I use. So this is a long rectangular container, and then I also have the circular containers. The rectangular containers can hold a little bit less dirt, but you can put more plants into them because of the width at the top. So I have experimented around with this, and I find that if I put more than 3 plants into this particular container, that my plants get root bound too soon, and that means that I have to water them more frequently, and it also means that they aren't as successful. They don't make as many vegetables. Those were peppers that I all just planted. This is a slightly smaller rectangular container, and so I can only do 2 plants inside of that container. The red ones in the background, those are like slightly larger containers. They can handle 1 to 2 plants. I try to keep it to 1, but they can sometimes handle up to 2. This is a pepper plant that I am planting. I have mostly pepper plants as my annuals. I also have a few tomatoes. They grow they're like cherry tomatoes, but our balcony is a little bit tough on tomatoes because it gets a lot of sun and a lot of heat, but that's actually really good for peppers. So that's something to keep in mind. Like if I had a balcony that didn't get a lot of sun, I would plant completely different plants than what I plant. This very large container, this large yellow one, you can see there's already 1 tomato plant in it, which I really thought might die after I transplanted it, but it didn't. And so I'm adding a second tomato plant. This container can't really handle more than 2 tomato plants because they need a lot of water, and it needs the reservoir of water in that much dirt. So that's why I only keep it to about 2 tomato plants, and I use that container for tomato plants. So that will be those 2 tomato plants. And then what I'm doing here is I'm companion planting a 3rd tomato plant that I had, because I always started a few extra seedlings just in case, and so far nothing had died. That one's not looking too healthy. I don't know if it's going to survive, but I figured I'd give it a shot and companion plant it with that pepper. Tomatoes and peppers are great companions. On the upper left are chives. Those are perennials. So once you have them established, they just come back after the winter really easily. Then you can see I have mostly peppers. There's that 1 tomato in that top left. These are perennial berry bushes. I've got blackberry, raspberry, and blueberry is the really bushy looking one. And then on the far right is my tomato container. Please take a moment to like and subscribe if you're not already. My upcoming video is going to be talking about decluttering my commuter bag, which I haven't used since March of 2020 when I was sent to work from home, so that'll be some interesting discoveries for us all, I hope. Bye!